Thanks for stopping by today, guys. My name is Troy, I'm bold, and I collect watches. And today's watch is from a UK micro brand that is currently live on Kickstarter. The Sherwood Commander is on an early bird price of £325, which is roughly $390 or €360. And if you do back the Kickstarter, you'll be able to save up to £125 off of the standard price. But let me tell you more about the watch, and I'll let you know what I rate and what I hate, and whether you should be back in this project. I was contacted through Instagram to review this watch, and this watch will be returned, but this review is going to be 100% unbiased. Glyn Reynolds, the guy behind the brand, is a very active watch community member. A member who doesn't just showcase his watch collection, but in fact posts renders of what changes he would offer to watch releases. And we ain't talking using MS Paint either. You see, Glyn is a graphic designer, so sometimes his renders are actually better than what we see. And this is probably because he can offer the viewpoint of a 50% graphic designer and 50% the opinion of a watch collector. But will he hit the bullseye with his own design and his own watch release, titled The Commander? Let's find out. So I would normally open up my review with the packaging offered, but as it stands, there is no packaging, and Glyn is currently working on all that stuff behind the scenes. But straight off the bat, I think that launching the watch without the packaging could hinder this watch's appeal to customers. And let me explain why. When you look at various projects and watch releases, we get treated with wooden lacquered boxes, watch rolls, etc., etc. It's that first impression. It's what gets the juices flowing. And that is why, as watch collectors and content creators, we offer things like unboxings. They are successful because you get this dopamine hit. That hit you get when you unpack the box from its packaging, but you also get the joy of finally revealing your watch. But I know Glyn. He is a collector, and I have no doubt he is working on something special. He understands the simple pleasures a nice watch and nice presentation can bring. And with the brand being called Sherwood, and the brand itself being inspired by Robin Hood and Sherwood Forest, having a wooden box or some sort of sustainable, environmentally friendly box would fit this brand really well. Having an all-singing and all-dancing box with bells and whistles does of course come at a cost, and we wouldn't want a great box increasing the price tenfold, and also can compromise the quality of this watch. But on my first impressions, this watch is in no way compromised at all. We of course have to talk about the price, and I'll be honest with you guys. If there is a micro brand that I like or a watch that resonates with me, I'm more than happy to pay that little extra. I want to be part of that brand story. I want to support the small team behind the brand. I want to help one guy's vision become a reality. It really is that simple. I want to support independent watch brands. As much as I love Seiko and other mainstream brands, and as a collector I want to grow and experience luxury watches, I will do this and see where I can save money. But with a micro brand, if I like it, I'll be more than happy to purchase at any price. Within reason, of course. Glyn himself has said that the first run is limited in its supply. It's a small run of watches, and because of this, he doesn't have the luxury to mass produce, which in turn would result in cheaper parts because he can buy in bulk. He has also had to have the mold and the machining made to order, which would show me he hasn't got any off-the-shelf parts, or he's kept that to a minimum, and all this requires extra capital. The price of £325 on the Kickstarter campaign does give you that massive saving of £125. So if you're liking the watch, you do need to be quick as there are only a few days left. The price set I would consider fair. Compared certainly to alternatives out there, the watch comes with a high beat Miyota movement and other premium materials, but all of this will command a certain price. Even at £450, I think the Commander is a good choice, and it's great how Glyn has managed to keep it under that ceiling price of £500. Before I show you the dimensions, I was really deceived by the images online. The design of this watch, maybe being a diver, looked big online, but when on wrist I have to say the dimensions for my 7-inch wrist was perfect. But let me show you all those essential measurements. So there are your dimensions. Having that shorter, under 50mm lug to lug makes the lugs the perfect size to curve and hug my wrist. And at 40mm, Glyn has captured what he has set out, to launch a dress diver. And with that scaled down bezel size, he's managed to increase the dial's footprint, so this watch looks larger and more legible than if he were to keep with a more traditional thicker bezel. I like this bezel, and I will elaborate on that later in this review. The case sides are highly polished, not my number one choice, but Glyn's vision was to have a watch that a certain secret agent would wear. And it adds to those dress vibes that Glyn wanted to achieve. After all, Bond drank a dry martini shaken not stirred, and not a pint of Stella. But we do have some brushing to the top of the lugs, and that drops that bling factor down a notch, and it works. The inspiration behind the brand can be found on the back. The major oak, Britain's biggest oak tree, which is situated in Sherwood Forest, and that's not too far from Glyn's hometown of Nottinghamshire. It's a screw-down case back with some of the watch's info on it, so we have automatic, 200 meters water resistance, British design, stainless steel, and sapphire, of course, for the crystal used. The crown has also got some branding, which shows the Sherwood shield. It's ultra grippy and knurled to perfection. I think the bezel is evident that this watch has been designed by a watch fanatic. The bezel has been reduced in size to allow a more dressier vibe and a less utilitarian look. Glyn has also designed the bezel with some radical design language. For example, the traditional 12 o'clock lume pip and its countdown of 20 minutes, that's gone out the window. But what Glyn has designed is still a 20-minute countdown timer, but this one is symmetrical. He's achieved this by starting the bezel timer at 10 o'clock. You will see then that we have 4 rectangle markers, and these are each timed at 5 minutes. They are also loomed, as is the rest of the markers. These have been loomed in BGW9, and the bezel is ceramic. Just more indication into showing that a watch fan has designed this watch. The 120 click bezel is solid and has no backplay. The grip has been done just enough to allow a decent grip, and the edges are smooth to touch with no rough edges. Overall, a very solid, no nonsense, but with some added flair bezel. Glyn has chosen to go with a double domed anti-scratch sapphire crystal. This allows the wearer to enjoy minimal distortion to the dial when looking at the watch face at certain angles. A smart choice because I know the distortion can be off-putting for some. Me, I actually don't mind, but this crystal choice does make time telling easier. There's been anti-reflective treatment applied to the underside of the dial. I like this and really enjoy the subtle blue hue it gives. It may not be visible on camera, but at times there is a slight blueness to the crystal under certain light. So 2 thumbs up for the crystal from me. Miyota have some great movements, and watch brands are often criticised for including the 8000 series, so it's certainly a good choice that Glyn has added the higher beat Miyota 9039 movement here. It is a 24 jewel hacking and hand-wound movement, and it beats at 28,800 beats per hour. It's marketed as ultra thin by Miyota, and this choice has no doubt helped with how well this watch can wear. Also, as a no-date movement, this watch doesn't have the bane of many watch fans out there with having a ghost date. Just unscrew, 1 pull, and you're done. Choosing this movement would have increased production costs, but a sensible choice all the same, and that is because it's not only a high beat movement, but also thinner. And as a relatively new collector, that would be a feature I would have overlooked if I was designing my own watch. For me, the first thing I picked up when I saw this watch online was that secondhand. It's an Arrow, the coolest secondhand I think I've seen to date. It fits the brand really well, you know, with that Robin Hood tie-in and all. The Arrow secondhands are just as cool. They start larger at the tip and then thin down at the base. A really cool and individual handset here. If we look at the printing on the dial, up at the 12 o'clock we have the brand name, and that's a negative for many of you out there. On Gary and Jodie's videos, the comments section was filled with negatives and naysayers because of the size of this logo. And to a point I have to agree. It's a little on the large size, but Glyn, being a graphic designer, I would know for a fact would have played with the size of this logo. Is this something that may change? Of course. Let's look at Christopher Ward. They ditched the placement and the name and went for a logo because that is what the community demanded. Could Glyn do the same? Only time will tell. At the 6 o'clock we have the word automatic and its water resistance. The perfect amount of text, not overdone, and coloured in red to match the arrowhead. There is an angled chapter ring with a printed minute track, and all indexes have been applied, all with lume, and up at the 12 o'clock you'll see the Sherwood shield sitting proud. When buying the Commander, the blue and black will have BGW9 lume. If you go for the green, that will come with C3 lume. The lume is pretty sharp and has been done really well. Let's check it out. The bracelet on the final production will change from pin and collar to screw links. The bracelet has solid links and each link is made up of a 5-part design. The center links have been polished and the rest of the bracelet is brushed. It tapers from 19mm to 17.9mm and it really helps with the fit. The double push button clasp has been signed and is milled. I would have probably liked to have seen the logo go horizontal and a little bit smaller. To me, the branding here just seems a little overpowering, but it is a great bracelet. But I feel also this watch could have gotten away with a leather strap. Wait a second and hear me out. I work with a lot of brands within my business, and I think the name Sherwood has a connotation of forestry. Maybe the first watch you feel should have and could have been a field watch. But then with a second watch launch, we could have seen the dive watch, but that may have felt a little left field for us and not fitting of the brand and a little bit alien. So by releasing your first watch as a diver, you've got that out the way. But on a leather strap, this watch would have worked. It also would have kept the price down, making it more appealing maybe to potential buyers, maybe even giving the choice of a brown strap on a green dial, a black strap for the black dial, a navy for the blue Commander. It goes against Glyn's vision of this being a dress diver and maybe more of a desk diver, and I think I'm just a fan of a leather strap on a diver. But I do feel this watch would pull off a leather strap really well. But I guess you could always purchase the watch and be assured it's going to be a strap monster and then purchase yourself an additional strap. But anyway, it's time to wrap up this review and let you know what I rate and what I hate. I'll have to go with the negatives and I'll start with the packaging. It would be nice to know what you're going to expect your watch to come in. To offer packaging after the Kickstarter has ended makes this project seem and feel a little unfinished. I also have to agree with some critics on the logo. Being smaller would have been a bonus, but I cannot see how this would have been achieved, and I have full confidence that Glyn has tried everything he has done possible to make the logo fit. And I mentioned that maybe the brand's identity didn't fully fit with a dive watch. For example, seeing steel dive on a pilot's watch. It doesn't make much sense. For me, Sherwood feels like it should be a field watch, but that's just me. Like I mentioned earlier, releasing a dive watch later on would have just felt weird, but I do like the Sherwood story and how it fits in with Glyn and his hometown. And I've said on my previous reviews, I love a good watch story, a brand with substance, not just a cash grab. With this watch, we have the story of James Bond and Robin Hood, but for me, this is the story of Glyn Reynolds, and what a great first chapter. From its choice of movement, the choice of glass, how good this watch wears, and down to its design quirks. This first outing from Sherwood Watches doesn't just hit the mark, it's a bullseye. And that's me done for another review. Make sure to check out the Kickstarter if you want to buy this watch. There is a link in the description, and as always, please remember that I'm an enthusiast and not an expert, and I'll catch you all very, very soon.